Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order for the North End School Committee for May 7th, 2020. Would people first rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to another remote virtual meeting of the North End School Committee. First, for preliminary matters, this meeting is being recorded. And I need to read a few things under the governor's order here, so bear with me. Okay, this is the North End School Committee meeting for May 7th, 2020. I'm going to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Andrew McDevitt?
Yes.
Holly Lynch?
Yes.
Helen Picard?
Yes.
Amy Mabley?
Yes.
And David Teresi is here. I'm the chair. Superintendent Greg Gilligan, are you there?
Yes.
James Mealy is in the room with me, more than 6 feet apart, so you know. Who else do we have on the call? Is Lorene Marks and Marcy Bacuzzi?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, both are, oh, there's, I saw Lorene, okay. And anyone else? That's it for staff. Anticipated speakers, are our students on the line?
Chair Teresi,
Yes, Helen.
there are a number of other staff people here. Would you like me to name them?
Yes, go ahead. What other staff people are here?
So I see Jacqueline Taylor. Can you say yes? You need to take yourself off mute.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cara Larkham
Yes.
and Kristen Ando.
Yes. And Ann Joyce. Yes.
Oh, there she is.
Yep, up and top.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair, thank you very much for doing that, because I do not have that list in front of me, and I can't see the screen like you can see the screen, so thank you. Do we have our student speakers on the line right now? Jack and Eamon and Micah?
I do not see them on the line,
Okay.
but I did expect them.
Okay, if they join, we'll go back to the student report at that time. Okay.
Great.
Okay, so this open meeting of the North End School Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting we do a public comment posted, but I do not have any public comment submitted, so there'll be no public comment. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Ms. Picard.
we have another staff person who's joined us, Jen Hudak. Hudak or Hudak?
Okay. I'll get
Hang on,
to,
she's gonna unmute so she can affirm that
Okay.
she's here, and she's gonna tell us how to say it. Hudak.
Hudak.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks, Jen.
welcome.
okay, Helen, I need to finish reading a couple more things here. Hold on a second, please.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries. All right, we are now going to turn to the first, yeah, I'm also with that. Before we turn to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of the members, inviting each by name to provide comment, questions, or motions. So please hold your questions or comments until your name is called. Please remember to mute your phone or computer if you're not speaking, and please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you, and again, state your name before speaking. Okay, so we don't, oh, finally, each vote taken tonight will be done and conducted by a roll call vote. There'll be no voice votes tonight. So I think, so like I said, the public comment, there is no public comment tonight. The first order of business is student report. Jack, did you get on the line yet? Okay. If the members would indulge me, I will postpone student report until Jack gets on the phone, okay? Consent agenda is approval of minutes. The minutes for April 30th, 2020 are in your packet. Are there any, first, can I have a motion to accept a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
So moved.
That was Ms.
Second.
Picard, seconded by,
Holly.
okay. That was seconded by Mr. McDevitt. I heard both your voices there, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
This ain't easy, folks. Okay, motion made, seconded, any discussion? Ms. Picard, any discussion on the minutes?
No.
Ms. Mabley?
No.
Andrew, any comments or corrections?
No corrections.
And Holly, I think, was the last
No.
person. No, all set? Okay. Okay, so we'll go to a roll call now. Helen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Amy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Holly?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that's a 5-0 vote. Thank you, everybody. Okay, superintendent's report. Dr. Gilligan.
Yes, I just have two quick updates before I turn it over for an update on remote learning. Number one is I just wanted to recognize all of our teachers and nurses, as this is National Teacher Appreciation Week and School Nurse Appreciation Week. And when I say teacher, I think that includes all educators, in my opinion, here in North Andover. And that's from top to bottom. They do a superb job, and I just wanted to make sure that we recognize them. Secondly, I really wanted to thank, Principal Jackson, Scott Young, the assistant principal, the senior class advisors, Lauren McDonald and Derville Bentley. But really importantly, senior class officers Jack Muse, Caleb Lister, Lillian Papel, and Anit Shah, and many other people who have worked really hard to make a memorable send-off for the class of 2020. And I think that there's a great plan in place. And, that might not always look like the traditional graduation, but I think this is going to be pretty awesome. This is the 150th graduating class of the North Andover Public Schools. The Johnson High School opened up here at Central Office in 1867, but the first class did not graduate until 1870. And there were 9 graduates, 8 females and 1 male in that first class of 1870. So thanks to all the folks doing the hard work for the seniors, including all the parents out there who had great suggestions and have worked really hard, but especially Principal Jackson and the senior officers. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And any questions on either of those, I'll take it, but then I'll turn it over to Ms. Marks and her team for a remote learning update.
Any questions, Helen?
No.
Any questions, Holly?
No.
Any questions, Amy?
No questions.
Andrew, any questions?
Not right now.
Okay. So Greg, are you going to run, thank you, everyone. Are you going to run the remote learning, or is there going to be a point person on the line who's going to introduce the appropriate speakers?
So I am going to introduce Lorene Marks, our Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning. She'll introduce the team. This is a brief presentation, but we're really excited to give you an update, particularly at our elementary level, on remote learning, what we've been doing since April 6th. And then we'll come back with a secondary update. So I will turn it over now to the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, Lorene Marks.
And Lorene, before you start, members, let's let Lorene and her team finish the presentation first, and then I will ask you guys if you have questions, okay? Thank you. Lorene.
Okay. Jim, are you able to broadcast that PowerPoint
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. So we will let you know, Jim, when you need to switch slides, okay?
Okay.
All right, I know that the team was already introduced, but I'm going to just go through that again. So I have with me here today, Cara Larcombe, who is our STEM coordinator, Kristen Ando, who is our humanities coordinator, Ann Joyce, who is a literacy coach, Jackie Taylor, who is a literacy coach, and Jen Hudak, who is a literacy coach. And before we begin, I'd like to just say that I invited this curriculum team to participate in this presentation, not because they need one more thing to do, because these people have been so busy, but because I wanted them to be recognized and be honored for the work that they have done. They have contributed greatly to what has happened over the time that school has been closed. Just this afternoon, I received an email with praise for some of our coaches. I received a text asking for one of the coaches' personal addresses so that a teacher could send a thank you note. And that was just a few things this afternoon. Over this time, I have received numerous emails, texts, calls about just how appreciated these people are. So I can't stress enough, really, what a phenomenal job that they have done. I'm so proud of their commitment to the students, to our teachers, and to the district, and of their exceptional work. So thank you all very much. So first slide, I am going to have to move over to my slides. So we are talking about North Andover remote learning and an update on phases 1 through 3, which actually started with Beyond the Classroom. And this is focused on kindergarten through 5th grade. Next slide, please. So you probably have all seen our website, those of you with students, and I know we shared it with school committee members who haven't. I'm going to ask Jim just to click on the link right above where it says North Andover Remote Learning website. And on that website, we start out with just a lot of resources for social, emotional, and mental health. We know that this has been a very difficult time for many people, and we wanted to make sure that we had a lot of information there to support our families, our students, our teachers. Our elementary guidance counselors are putting out information every week with the teachers with lots of great ideas and lots of great supports. So I just wanted to bring that to people's attention. Next slide, please. We started out with Beyond the Classroom days, and that went from pre-K right through grade 12. Those were March 16th and 17th, so that was the Monday and Tuesday of the first week that we were closed. We had already been approved to have those Beyond the Classroom days. They were set up, designed for short-term weather closures, but it worked definitely in our benefit for this. So our first 2 days, which counted for school days, were Beyond the Classroom days, March 16th and 17th. Next slide, please. We then moved into phase 2, and what we really tried to focus on as we moved into phase 2 was what the commissioner had asked were just enrichment activities. So a lot of that really came through this team that I just introduced. We researched and loaded onto the website a number of activities for enrichment for our families and our students. In addition to that, we asked that teachers reach out via email, phone, Google, or other virtual classroom, I know some were using Zoom, to their students and check in to see how they were doing. We also asked that they provide any guidance or support on Beyond the Classroom or learning activities for school closure that their students or families might need. And we asked that they check and respond to emails twice daily. After those 3 weeks, we began to move into phase 2. And Jim, if you could just click on that document right under those 3 bullet points I just shared. And this is just a quick kind of picture of what that work started to look like. So as we started to move into what the state asked us to do in terms of deepening the learning, we as a team identified power standards for all the teachers K through 5 across all of our elementary schools, because we, again, with the strategic plan, wanted it to be consistent. We didn't want one first grade doing something different than another first grade. We had developed a scope and sequence chart, which I think we have shared with you before, and we used that scope and sequence chart to see what had been taught and where it would make the most sense to go deeper into into those skills for our teachers and our students. And then we asked the coaches, you'll see their sample video. I'm not going to click on all of these or haven't even clicked on all of these right now, but there are directions, there are exit ticket examples, there are think sheets. As you can see, if you scroll down that a bit, Jim, there are lots and lots of support that the coaching team provided for the teachers as they started to get into this. Next slide, please. Kara, you are on.
Right, thank you. So as Lorraine mentioned, in phase 2, we were looking at deepening the learning, and we set up expectations for staff and students to provide a consistent approach. The general guidelines were loaded to the new remote learning pages of the Beyond the Classroom website. Google Classroom became the primary method for teachers to share lessons with their students, and tutorials were posted to the site to support that transition. If you can move to the next slide, please. Lessons for each subject area provide students with a review of concepts and ways to practice what they have learned. As you can see by the schedule, students have 4 days of new lessons each week and submit 1 example of work or exit ticket per subject. Students also complete 1 lesson in art, music, library, and physical education each week. On Fridays, teachers collaborate with colleagues, participate in IEP and faculty meetings, and are also available to students for assistance. If you go to the next slide, please. This curriculum map, similar to what Lorraine had showed, this shows all of the power standards for this 5-week period. For each curriculum area, we identified standards that students were already exposed to earlier in the school year. And then, as Lorraine mentioned, we provided sample lessons for teachers to use as guidance. Next slide, please. Here's a sample lesson for math remote learning. We selected 3 math practice standards focused on each week. The lessons provided a launch component with a series of questions to explore an image. We also included math problems connected to grade level content standards that were taught earlier in the year. This provided students the opportunity to practice and deepen their learning and really engage with math in a variety of ways. Next slide, and I'm going to pass it off to Kristen for the next phase.
Excellent. All right, we got additional guidance from the Commissioner and the Department of Education on April 27th to move to phase 3, or what the Commissioner is calling phase 3. So as you can see, our focus narrowed from our enrichment suggestions at first to our power standards. We were visiting previous content to the state and the Commissioner identified prerequisite standards, and we align those with consistent curriculum. And that's the plan we'll roll out starting Monday the 11th till the end of the year. Will you turn the slide for me, please? Thank you. The curriculum team and the coaches got together again to pair up the prerequisite standards along with our current curriculum that would normally be taught at this time of year or in this phase in the year. And we were able to deliver curriculum materials at a principal level, at a team level, and at an individual teacher level. And so we were able to map out what the next 6 to 7 weeks would look like. The way we communicated this is that we made a short film that we sent out to all the teachers in order to explain this next phase. Will you turn the slide, please? And I'm going to turn it over to the coaches.
This is Anne, and throughout this whole process, we realized how hard the teachers have been working, learning new technology, communicating with families, and so we felt like our job was to support the teachers with providing them consistent and quality curriculum materials. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jacqueline, and she's going to share a sample of what our lessons look like and show how consistent they are across the grade levels. Jacqueline?
So Jacqueline here, and Ann and I have been working together to try and make what teachers see as consistent as possible. You'll get a chance to see her version of the K-2 in a minute. I have taken over 3 to 5. And what teachers see when they go to this document is each column is a series of lessons that they can teach during that week. And Ann and I have gone through the curriculum units and prioritized our lessons based on the standards that the Commissioner set out for us. And what we have been working on is her and I read those lessons, and then we create slides that contain all of the graphics and all of the resources that teachers would need to present to students. We also then use those slides to create videos as if we were teaching them to students ourselves. All of these resources are linked into the document for teachers to use. And I feel that what has been so beautiful about all of this is, in talking with teachers, they each have their own way in which they're using the resources to help themselves and help students. So it ranges from them being able to take exactly what we had and use it so that they can invest more time in one-on-one with kids, to some teachers will include a beginning and end slide to tweak it to meet their student needs in the classroom. And other teachers are using the videos, watching them, and then getting ideas to then create their own for their kids. If you'll see the next slide, Jim, you'll notice that most of it is as consistent as we can make it. So all our kids and all our teachers from K to 6 are able to see the same type of resources. I'm passing it over to Jen now.
Thank you. So just as Anne and Jackie had mentioned, I also had to take the DESE recommended major content standards and create a new scope and, next slide, please. New scope and sequence, there you go, for the remainder of the year, for the next 6 or 7 weeks. For each grade level, I identified 2 major lessons from our district approved curriculum, Eureka, that would align with the standards that need to be taught by the end of the year. Then for each grade level, I've also created a slideshow that has interactive elements where students can type directly into the slideshow. They can move around objects. I have some technology enhanced things such as drag and drop, move a ruler around. I've pulled in less elements from the Eureka curriculum and also included instructional videos for every lesson, created exit tickets, and included other new math strategies such as 3-act tests or which one doesn't belong, as Kara had showed before. And you can switch the slide. I'm going to pass it to Lorraine now.
Okay, this next slide, many of you have already seen. I know that it went out in Dr. Gilligan's recent newsletter, but it just gives you just a glance at what our first 2 weeks looked like. It was a huge, huge undertaking for everybody. We had the first 2 weeks, 3,395 Google Classroom posts, 10,580 Google Meet sessions, average length of about a half an hour. We passed out over 1,000 Chromebooks, and we provided 25 hours of PD for staff during that time. Much of that was around technology in Google, and our technology staff was involved in that, but our curriculum staff was also involved in that. Next slide, please. So this is just a picture of some other resources that we had available to help support our staff. So you will see a lot of, let me just try to make that a little bit bigger for me. Introductory videos, information on prerequisite standards, the samples, all of that is there. So you can see, I mean, what you're seeing in these slides are just really a snapshot of work that this team has created. And just looking at these slides, I continue to be just blown away by the work that has been accomplished. None of this existed prior to the school closings. So it is a tremendous, tremendous amount of work and effort on the part of this curriculum team. And our teachers have welcomed and embraced it, which has been phenomenal. One of the pluses we've seen come out of this is taking our coaching to a whole new level. The relationships have evolved in a different way. The kind of information we're able to share with the teachers in terms of teaching strategies, curriculum resources, the collaboration that's happened has been really tremendous. So again, I just can't say enough about how proud I am of the work that they've done and how our teachers have embraced this. We are going to be moving into phase 4. DESE has a group working on recommendations for phase 4, which will focus on how schools may reopen in the fall. Our team is already talking and preparing for the possibility for the need for more remote learning. We are also talking and preparing for how to determine productive ways to assess students around the foundational skills and prerequisite skills that they gain in elementary school. and then taking that information so that we can best coach and support teachers in addressing those needs when the students come back. So that's really our next level of work that we have begun to talk about. So if people have questions, we will welcome those.
All right, members, hold on one second. Lorene, thank you very much, and thanks to your team for a very thorough presentation. Dr. Gilligan, anything from you before I go to the members?
No, I just want to thank the team for putting this together. I think, you know, one of the things that is most important is these guys and the teachers did an amazing job in North Andover with the resources available to put something together looking towards the future. So the standards they put together for this April 6th period and beyond, and now the prerequisite standards they're asking us to cover, those are the things that which are in a rigorous curriculum. So the most important standards, and the state has named a few, we need to cover those in order to move to the next grade level. But they laid the foundation with the learning activities in phase 1, along with the teachers, and then in phase 2, and now moving into this piece. And as Lorene said, there's quite a bit of work going into phase 4, which would be the reopening of school. And there's also a huge health component to that as well. But that's for another day. So thank you, folks. Thank you, Greg.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the members now. So when I call your name, if you can direct it to Ms. Marks, but if there's a specific question to a specific person, you just call that person's name as well. So Helen, why don't we start with you, Madam Vice Chair?
Thank you. I don't have questions, but I will comment this. At some point in time, we made a decision to have coaches and coordinators, and it's very clear that was a really important component for our success right now. And that's due to the already established relationships all these coaches and coordinators have with each other and with the teaching staff. The teaching staff at the beginning could focus on the well-being of students because these coaches and these coordinators were focusing on the curriculum pieces that needed to be next steps. I mean, first we deal with people, and then we deal with problems, right? And we deal with the materials that we're presenting and sharing with students. Mr. Rogers said something like, where the limits are reached, creativity begins, and I'm stunned and blown away, and hope that everyone in our community will watch this really short presentation that shows so much success. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Holly, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you for that presentation. I thought it was very helpful and informative. My question is for Marcy on what we're doing. What's an update for special education students?
Marcy?
I'm here. So I'm going to give you the short of a very probably needing to be longer explanation that I can plan for next time too. But as most people know, we take a lot of our guidance from the state level. And so over the course of the last 8 weeks, there's been some conflicting guidance from the federal and the state level. We sort of have been rolling with the punches. The wonderful thing about special education teachers is that their whole career is about being adaptable. So, you know, a situation isn't working for a kid and they adapt like that. That's pretty much what their practice is. So from the beginning, I knew we were going to have challenges, but I just had so much faith in them, and what they have been able to accomplish is pretty amazing. So, you know, unfortunately, we don't have the same type of framework with standards to work on because it's such an individual situation for kids. So between working on individual goals and objectives, looking at online platforms, talking to parents, being on the front line from the very beginning, they've really done pretty amazing work. So their guidance is to continue to work on goals and objectives. So that is what they've been doing. So a combination of supporting teachers, looking at accommodations, but a significant amount of direct service.
Thank you, Marcy. Holly, any further questions, or for anyone else, follow-up question?
No.
Thank you, Holly. Andrew?
I do. Excuse me, and I'll just address them all to Lorene, Mrs. Marks, if that's okay. So my children are middle school and high school, and so the elementary level, I think, is a very different challenge for a number of families, especially with parents who are working, may or may not be home, and trying to fit these things kind of in the day. And so one of the things that I've just kind of heard, and I would encourage you to just kind of work with the staff, is consistency of kind of where information is. As teachers are posting and publishing, kind of work and assignments and things of that nature. Because as one of my neighbors kind of said, like I had it down, I knew where everything was. And then I went in on Monday and like, I couldn't find anything. And so I think something might have changed in a format or something. And I don't know if that necessarily was really clearly communicated out to parents, or what those changes would be. So I would just encourage you, as things are growing and developing and moving along, that we make sure we really reiterate that to the parents who, to be very honest, they're struggling with this just as much as their children are as well.
Yep. All right, thank you, Andrew. That's helpful to hear. So.
Okay. The next thing that I would kind of just say is, and I know, and I have not been on the website to really kind of dive into this as much as I probably should have in the past couple of days, but really I would hope that we are doing a solid job of trying to segment this out based upon elementary, middle, and high school levels, and kind of what's there, and making sure that the faculty and the staff and the middle school and the high school and all of the elementary school websites are all kind of pointing back to the same type of documents that are there and the same reference points, because I think we want to make sure our message is as consistent as possible. And if somebody is familiar with the district website, then great, they can go there and find a link. And if they're more used to kind of going on a PTAC website and identifying it at that point, I think that they may find comfort kind of going to their school sites, not necessarily the district. So I just want to make sure we're putting as much of the information out as best as we can. And I think one of the other things that I would just really stress is, the personal contact that the teachers and the faculty and the staff have. We cannot underestimate the impact that it has on all of our students. So I know that some of my children, and I have 3, I'm not going to name names or grades, have had great one-on-one meetings with their teachers. They've had great sessions with them. Other teachers have sent recordings of kind of how to do different lessons and all that. So I would just really encourage as many times as we can kind of do that, hey, we're going to check in. It's going to be 30 minutes, on this day, just really stressing at perhaps some of those older levels, the communication and the contact between the faculty and the teaching staff that we have and our students. I mean, we cannot underestimate the impact that this is having on kids.
Thank you, Andrew. We'll definitely follow up on those issues.
Okay. Thank you.
All set, Andrew? Yes. I think
yes, for now.
Amy, any questions?
I actually, yes, thank you. So I think this is a spectacular presentation. The depth of information is overwhelming, and I think Helen did a beautiful job of expressing that. I know that this presentation and all its many links are also attached to our agenda, and I'm wondering if this presentation will be put elsewhere for people to be able to access, because again, the depth of material, I looked at a bunch of it the last couple of days. I still didn't get near half of it. So it's just amazing. And I'd love more people to be able to have a chance to see that. So a couple of questions I wrote down. Let's see. One is, so we had, Lorene mentioned this at the beginning about the all the social emotional support and materials and information. And it also came up in a public comment last week. But I'm wondering how on top of all the other things that the teachers are doing with the students, they're able to check in on the mental health, social emotional toll that this is all taking. And again, I know we're focusing on K-5 today. So that area I know is a big concern, and I'm sure that's something you're looking at for fall as well. And I'm wondering if you're going to have any sort of, maybe from students, but definitely from the teachers and staff as well, any kind of feedback after this spring is finished, as you prepare over the summer for how we're going to do things in the fall, which, as you mentioned, very likely will potentially have a remote component ready to go, how we might gather feedback to then incorporate how we move forward in the fall. I think that would be important.
Yes, Greg and I have talked about that, actually. Talked about possibly doing it on one of the Friday sessions with the principals, getting some very direct feedback in terms of what's working, what's not working, what kind of things do we need to look at differently. So it's definitely something we've talked about, and know that we want and welcome that information as we prepare to go forward. So.
I can just add to that too, just for the time being. Last Friday, and Helen was there, we had invited Nikki Murphy, our Director of Social Emotional Learning, to the NAPAC meeting, just to really have an initial conversation about some of the kind of immediate needs that families were feeling. And it was really a great conversation, just like everybody else being overwhelmed at the amount of resources out there, myself including. So she took some time to go over the resources on our website, but also there's the NAPAC is also doing a series of community chats that they're inviting community members to. So again, instead of adding something else to the plates, she is connected with the NAPAC president, who will likely be doing a presentation also soon, to try to hook her in to more sort of specific areas. Like clearly one of the big areas that came up in conversation was around anxiety. So it was somewhat, we can answer some specific questions. A lot of it was sharing resources, but the goal is to get into some more just really sharing specific resources for families about their individual situations too. So hopefully between now and the end of the year, and she's willing to do as much or as little as she really needs in order to get out to the families.
Nikki and I were also communicating back and forth today around some training for our leadership team over the summer as we prepare to come back in the fall, and some mental health first aid for our teachers as they start to see the students in the fall as well. So we're talking about a lot of ways that we can make sure we get people trained and familiar with what are signs or symptoms of certain, whether it's anxiety or fear, whatever it might be, and how we can best support that. So we are working on that as we speak as well.
Thank you.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Amy, anything else? Amy, all set? Okay.
All set.
I mean, it's repetitive, but, I understand all the challenges that this is, put to our administrators and teachers. And I think we all agree that, no matter how hard we try and how much effort we put into this, it'll pale in comparison to having actual, in-person, face-to-face. But, what I've experienced and what my kids have experienced has been, super positive. And, I'm sure the teachers are, embracing it as much as they can. I am glad to hear that you're talking about, preparing for, I hope it's not inevitable, but what could happen in the fall as well. It's something to think about, something obviously to refine and try to perfect. But I think just this being thrown at you folks, literally thrown at you guys, you've done an incredible job piecing it together. So I thank you all. Thank you, Lorene.
Thank you, ladies. You can go and enjoy your homes.
I was just going to ask if they had anything else to say, but thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have the students tonight, but we usually let them go. But Ms. Marks, you have to stay.
I know.
Okay. Greg, we're still in the superintendent's report. Anything else you want to mention in the superintendent's report?
No, but we'll have a secondary update on remote learning. And I just want people to know, there are UNESCO estimates there are 1 1.5 billion students out of school at this time. 1.5 billion with a B. And I'm going to post this week, and when we get to the secondary report, as someone who has a I have a daughter in high school, son in middle school age. I'm going to publish a letter from the director of admissions at Worcester Polytechnical Institute because I think it's a concern people have worrying about the future, and the message from the colleges is really clear. And WPI being one of that's very, very selective, just about not worrying, that we're all in the same boat, and we'll cover more of that next time. So,
Okay. Thank you, Greg. My chair's report is a couple of PSAs. Again, the town election is still scheduled for June 2nd at the high school. The town clerk is eager to get more people to vote by mail, which you can do. Just go to the Town of North Andover website and you can request a ballot if you haven't done it so already. So I want to make sure people are aware of that. I do want to mention, I know Greg touched on this a little bit. We had a lot of parents reach out to us over the weekend via email. I know the school committee received a lot of emails, and I think I really want to compliment Principal Jackson and you, Greg, for taking those to heart, looking at them, and coming up with a tweaked plan. I think the plan that was presented last week by Jack especially, and I want to thank those students, including Jack, who really went to spend a lot of time and volunteered their effort and their ideas. So I really appreciate everything they've done. I think the addition that was added to it was helpful, and I know I had received some personal texts after the announcement went out about the potential for a July in-person graduation. So I think it was very much appreciated. And again, I really want to compliment, Chet and his team down there and the students for, being thoughtful about it. Because I know, those sometimes who volunteer, bear the brunt of a lot of criticism, and a lot of it's unfair. But at the same time, you got to respect these parents, have feelings and what they're going through. So I think it worked out for the best. And I really, again, want to thank you, Greg, and your team for leading that effort. I failed to mention last time, I wanted to congratulate Steve Nugent. The Boston Globe named him track coach of the year. It's probably 2 or 3 weeks ago now. But I think we all know how fantastic our track program is. And it was just a nice acknowledgement of Steve's efforts over the years, not only dedication to his athletes, but we all know he really cares about them more as students. And there's a lot of people that really appreciate Steve's efforts. So we're lucky to have him in our school system. I also want to acknowledge there was a great article in the Globe about Brendan Holland, one of our pitchers, who's going to, the Globe was doing not a spotlight series, but highlighting some athletes who were missing out on spring sports, and it was just nice to have a front page story about one of our student athletes, and it was nice to hear that our coach Todd Doolin was still staying active with him and talking to college coaches even during all this stuff that's going on. So just a couple nice little stories recently in the Globe about a coach and a student. And lastly, PSA town meeting still scheduled for June 16th, to be determined whether we meet whole or not, but we'll see about that. That's all for my chair's report. Old business. I put this on the calendar last week, and I'm guessing we're probably not going to do anything about this, but this was the continued discussion of the 2019-2020 school calendar. As you know, we canceled April vacation. We are scheduled to get out June 15th because of that now. There was no appetite last week. I assume there's no appetite this week to do anything about that. So if there's nothing, I'll just take no action on this agenda item unless I hear otherwise. Hearing none, there'll be no action taken on A, okay? Okay, second reading, approval of town meeting warrant article recommendations. I think we need to take these individually. We read these last week.
Chair Tracy?
Yes,
Chair
Helen.
Tracy?
Yes.
By taking no action, does that leave any impression that we may take action in the future? I don't want to have any uncertainty around this.
Well, there's no vote to be I'm gonna lose my stuff again. Here we go. I don't think there's any vote to be taken because we are getting out June 15th at all. So I can clearly state to you folks, the public, the teachers, anyone else who may be, listening. I know our ratings aren't as good as The Bachelor, but I think we can confidently say that June 15th is the last day. Is that correct, Dr. Gilligan?
David, if there's no action or you voted to, take the action on a vote, either way, June 15th would be the last day of school.
And will the superintendent be communicating that to the community?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Okay, agenda item B, second reading approval, town meeting warrant article recommendations. There was not much discussion last week on these. Let's take them one at a time, if it's okay. I would appreciate a motion to recommend favorable action on Article 2. How you feeling, Mr. McDevitt?
I was trying to figure out if I was on mute or not there. I will move. I'm trying to get it to read. I've got two windows open here. I'm sorry. Just got the wording correct. Give me a second because it didn't load correctly. I apologize.
I don't think you need to read the entire article. I think you can just say, we'll have a favorable recommendation for article. I think there's 4 of them here.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Okay, so I will move a favorable recommendation for Article 2 as presented in the warrant packet.
Second.
Motion made by Andrew, seconded by Holly for favorable recommendation on Article 2. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Helen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Holly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Amy, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that's a 5-0 vote, favorable recommendation on Article 2. Article 3, authorization to accept grants of easements. Could I have a motion for a favorable recommendation on that, please?
So I will move that we take favorable action on the grant of easements as presented in the packet.
Holly, you there?
I was on mute. Second.
Thank you. Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Helen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Amy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Holly, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That's another 5-0 votes for a favorable recommendation on Article 3, authorization to accept grants of easements. Article 4 is another authorization of grant of easements as well. I don't know, is this much different? It looks very similar article.
One was to accept and one is to authorize, I guess.
Right.
Oh, okay, you're right. Right, okay. So Article 4, authorization to grant easements. Okay. Could I get a favorable recommendation for that as well?
So I will move for a favorable recommendation from the school committee for Article 4 as presented in the packet.
Second.
Motion made by Andrew, seconded by Holly. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Helen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Amy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Holly, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. I think there is one more.
Number 24.
Yes, Article 24, transfer of
Just
funds
trying to
from.
get to the page. Sorry.
That's okay. Article 24, transfer of funds from free cash to fiscal year 2020 school department revolving fund. Do I have a motion for favorable action on this one?
So I will move for favorable action as presented in the packet to transfer funds from free cash to fiscal year 2020 for the school department.
Second.
Motion made by Andrew, seconded by Holly. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Helen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Amy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Holly, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that's a 5-0 vote. Okay, we got those 4 done. Thank you very much, folks, on that one. Moving on, second reading approval policy updates. Amy, do you want to take these individually? Amy Mabley is our policy guru.
That is an overstatement, but yes, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
So we have first policy BEDH, public participation at school committee meetings. I think we made a couple changes last week. We struck out the part about signing in, and we struck out the part about not exceeding 15 minutes. We leave that to discretion of the chair. Amy, was anything else in that one that we?
No, those were the key things. And I just, before anybody asks, I just wanted to clarify that the numbering on the what are actually 5 items is a little off just because of editing processes. But when the clean final copy is done, they will be numbered, 1 through 5. And so do not worry about that. But yes, the edits that we discussed are reflected here.
Okay.
Okay. So could I get a motion to, Amy, why don't you make the motions on all of these, and then we'll get a second. But why don't you make the motion on every one of these, okay? One at a time, though.
Yes, so I'd like to make a motion to accept updates to policy BEDH as noted on the screen and in the packet.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Amy, seconded by Andrew. AM. Here we go. Any further discussion from anyone? We talked about this pretty extensively last week, so it should be all set. Helen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Amy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Holly, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 vote. That was BEDH. Okay, Amy, go ahead.
So the next one is IC, school year / school calendar. During our discussion last week, we did put forth several, dates by which we wanted to approve. The earliest one that was brought up, I think by me actually, was February 1st, which is what Ms. Zagari put in the document, but certainly that's the point to discuss. I think we all had discussed last time that May 1st felt awfully late, and annually, which I think is what MASC has, is not helpful. So we really need to determine a date that we feel comfortable by which we will decide the school calendar to help people plan for their summer and fall needs, or summer and school start needs.
So, Amy, let's do this. Why don't you put a motion on the table to do it as presented with February 1st, and then we can have a discussion and we can amend the motion if need be. So why don't you put a motion on the floor first?
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to accept updates to policy IC as noted in the packet and on the screen here.
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion made by Amy, seconded by Andrew to approve it as presented. Further discussion. Helen, any discussion first?
Yeah, I am concerned about February 1st as a date. I'm concerned that we could have snow dates in January that could interrupt that, that we're starting in on the budget in January. So it's going to have to be very intentional. I'm okay with February 1st, but we are going to have it on both of our January meetings, and it could come close to February 1st.
Okay. Holly, any discussion on this one?
No, I'm fine with the February 1st because I think we need to be earlier.
Okay.
Recognize, yeah, we could have snow days, but I think we should plan for that.
Okay. Andrew, any discussion?
No, I'm just going to say, even though it is February 1st, we typically have 3 or 4 meetings in the month of January because of the budget. So I think it gives people an opportunity to come to meetings to speak for any budget-related things, and at the same time present or speak regarding the calendar. So I'm in favor of February 1st.
And I will say that I am also in favor of February 1st. I think we can get it done, and we do have 3 meetings usually in January. we could, bang this out pretty quickly. I understand Helen's concern, but Helen, obviously, if you'd like to make a further motion to amend it, we'll take that up if you so choose.
Mr. Trissy, can I comment before the
Oh,
next
of course.
item?
I'm sorry. I
That's right.
forgot about you. Sorry, Amy.
So just one point of clarification. I believe this calendar we're talking about is not about the year that we're in, it's about the next year. So usually I think what we're talking about is by February 1st, we will have decided when we start in August, September.
Right.
So it's not deciding the last day of school. That definitely gets decided later after snow days. This is about the next calendar year, I thought.
It is.
Yeah, my concern around snow days, Amy, is if we have to cancel meetings and we need to have 2 readings of it. But I think if we generally have 3 meetings in January and this isn't contractual, like nobody can grieve if we don't get it done by February 1st. This is our intention. So I'm okay with February 1st. If we try it and we find February 1st is difficult or unmanageable, then we can change our policy in a future year. So let's give it a shot.
And Helen, we got these remote and snow days, schmo days. We'll have these meetings regardless now. We can do these all the time.
Woo-hoo!
We might meet all summer now. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor as for with the February 1st date in there. Amy, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Holly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Helen, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So thank you for that one. All right, Amy, keep it going. Take the mood off.
Sorry, I did forget the mute. So I'd like to make a motion to accept the revisions to policy ID as shown on the screen and presented in our packet.
Second.
Motion made by Amy, seconded by Holly to approve ID. Any further discussion?
I have one minor grammar misspelling. It's to help ensure with an E, not an I.
Forgot to do that. Thanks, Holly.
Sorry.
No, that's good. I forgot to mention that. So Bev will hear that.
Okay. Ensure. I'm trying to read it right now.
Third word in the green.
Oh, okay, there we go. Yes, okay. So just a grammatical change from insure to ensure. Any other discussion on this? Hearing none. Helen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Amy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Holly, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That's a 5-0 vote. Amy, go ahead. Next one. Amy?
You're muted.
I know, I'm sorry. I've got like 7 screens open. I didn't work when I was on that. Sorry. So the next one is
IGB.
IGB. I'd like to make a motion to accept the edits to policy IGB as presented in the packet and shown in the screen.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Amy, seconded by Holly. Any discussion? Hearing none. Helen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Holly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Amy, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 vote. So that was IGB. One more, Amy?
Okay, so this is policy IAB. I'd like to make a motion to accept the edits to this policy as presented on the screen and in our note packet and agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Amy, seconded by Holly. Any discussion, further discussion? This was just changing guardians, is that right? Or adding guardians? Yeah, okay.
Basically, yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Oh, was there someone there?
Just saying no. Sorry.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. Helen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Amy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Holly, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. It's another 5-0 vote. Okay. Amy, is that it for the policies?
That is it. Thank you. We'll look at some more for later in this spring, but that's it for today.
Okay, thank you very much for working on that. I appreciate it. Okay. Moving to new business. First reading, Student Opportunity Act. Dr. Gilligan.
Yes, I'm going to keep this brief. Just a quick background. I'll turn it over to Ms. Marks. She won't go through every slide tonight, but the Student Opportunity Act is something that we've all been advocating with our legislators over the past year. And these were additional funds and resources provided through Chapter 70 to address persistent opportunity and achievement gaps. And that was on top of the budget that we had presented back in January. And at this time, they have delayed submission till May. And it's not looking very likely that districts will be receiving the SOA money. There's a short form and a long form. 31 districts in the Commonwealth get 80% of the money is going to 31 districts in the Commonwealth. Places like, some of the bigger cities, millions and millions. And North Andover was slated to see, I think it was 144. But I'll turn it over to Lorene just for a quick little piece on our intention, what we wanted to do.
Okay, Jim, are you able to present those slides?
Yeah, we're into after the cover slide now.
Okay. So as Greg said, it's really the Student Opportunity Act was to address achievement gaps for students of color, low-income students, English learners, and students with disabilities. I'm not going to go through the whole slide. He did mention it was through additional Chapter 70 funds. They expect you to make 4 commitments. One is focusing on those student subgroups that are not achieving at the same high level as peers, to use specific evidence-based programs to monitor your success in reducing those disparities in achievement, and to engage families, particularly those representing student subgroups. They provide for you a series of statewide plans and evidence-based pieces that they recommend that you use. So when we looked at ours, we were looking at enhanced core instruction, and we were looking at 2 pieces. One was evidence-based early literacy. We were going to work on increased professional development and purchase curriculum materials, particular for our pre-K group, to get them in line with what we're doing from kindergarten on up. And then we had already started to investigate some of these early college programs. I've been working with Mr. Jackson, Mr. Nugent, Carrie Zwingy, who is the department head for ELA, really looking at how we can help support students through early college and mentor programs. We actually met with someone to get some mentors in, and we'll see where all that goes, if we can still do some of that even without the SOA money. So as I said, the early literacy was PD, the early college programs, we're looking at doing something with NECO on site at the high school or in the Lawrence campus. And again, as I mentioned, the mentor program. So at this point, we were a short form district. We were expected to receive approximately $144,000 in SOA money. And as Dr. Gilligan mentioned, right now they're asking us not even to submit applications because they are really questioning whether the finances will be there. We are presenting because school committee does have to vote on the plan if it does move forward. So we wanted to get a first read in there. Any questions?
Helen, any questions? I'm going to go for questions now. Helen, any questions?
Sorry about that. No, I don't have any questions. Thank you very much.
Amy, any questions?
Not at this time.
Andrew?
Not at this time. Thank you, Lorraine.
You're welcome.
Holly?
No.
Okay, thank you, Lorraine. I kind of agree with Dr. Gilligan. From what I'm reading, the budget shortfalls are going to be quite extensive in the next couple of years. So that's very unfortunate. But thank you for the presentation, Lorraine.
You're welcome.
Okay, first reading, Educator Hall of Fame nomination deadline extension. Ms. Picard. That's Helen.
I know, I'm just like Amy said, flipping between screens. We can't see the presentations there, so I have another screen that has a presentation, so switching around is a little tricky. So our Educator Hall of Fame, we had several people who had contacted me saying that they were planning to submit nominations, and we did not get any nominations by the deadline of April 30th. I have been in contact with those people who were planning to submit, and they do feel that they can submit in the next couple of weeks. It would be a real boon to our community to be able to celebrate new Hall of Fame members. So I would propose at this time that we extend the deadline for the Hall of Fame nominations to the 21st of May. That would give us time to have our committee come together and we'd be able to make an announcement in June.
Okay, so this is the first reading, and we're going to extend it to May 21st, and that is the next. Our next meeting is May 21st. So.
And by then, we'll either, if we make the date the 21st, we'll receive those and we wouldn't need to extend it further. If we don't receive them before May 21st, then we can, in the second reading, change the date again if necessary.
So you don't think we need to suspend the rules and make it right now to May 21st?
Oh, we could.
We've already passed the deadline, so we have no options.
Yeah, I mean, our other option is if we don't extend the deadline, we won't have any nominees and we won't recognize anyone this year. And I don't think that's our intention. No. You know, these folks that wanted to nominate, obviously COVID-19 gets in the way of all sorts of things that we're planning and trying to get done. But they really just feel like they needed another week or so to get it together. And I would love for us to be able to receive nominations and approve, you know, someone who's, I mean, there's so many wonderful educators that would be eligible.
I agree with you. So my preference would be then, I think we should, because it's not controversial, I prefer just to suspend the rules and take the main motion up, if that's okay with the membership. So Helen, would you mind making a motion to suspend the rules, and we'll, if there's a.
Yes. I move that we suspend the rules to extend the deadline for the Educator Hall of Fame.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Helen to suspend the rules to take this up today, and seconded by Andrew. Any further discussion? Anyone have a problem or an issue or a concern about that?
Nope.
No. All right, hearing none. Helen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Holly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Amy, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well to suspend the rule. So we'll take up the Educator Hall of Fame nomination deadline extension to move it to May 21st. Can I have a motion to that extent?
I would like to move that we change the Educator Hall of Fame deadline and extend it to May 21st.
For this year.
For this year, for
2020.
2020 only.
Second.
Amy, that you second? Yeah. All right,
Yes.
motion made by Helen, seconded by Amy. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Helen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Amy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Holly, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that is a 5-0 vote as well. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Did Jack ever get on the phone? Student report?
No.
Mr. Tristey, I'm guessing that since we had a meeting last week and with all the stuff that they have going on with AP exam prep, choosing their colleges, planning for graduation, I'm guessing that the students didn't realize we had a meeting tonight.
No worries. I know Jack's been working his tail off, so I appreciate everything he's done. I always enjoy his public comment. So we'll have him here on the 21st, which would probably be the last time as a student. So we should make sure that he is here for the 21st if we can, so we can sing his praises that he's well deserves. All right. So usually when we have our meetings, we do a public comment at the end. I did have a public comment come in at 6:42, and I did not refresh my email. I would just say to the public, juggling all this is difficult. So if you get your public comments in a little more than 15 minutes before the 7 o'clock kickoff, that'd be appreciative. But Thomas Duggan, Beacon Hill Boulevard, submitted public comment tonight. So let me just read this really quickly, folks, okay? Good evening. I am writing in regards to the budget MOU presented to the Board of Select Persons and Finance Committee. We can and must do better than simple numerical percentages to allocate potential cuts to the budget for both municipal and school services. A budget for our community reflects a plan, a level of service that meets our collective understanding of the quality of life we seek for our community, our families, and our region. This level of service may increase or decrease based on the decisions we make and the economics of a post or ongoing COVID recovery. I ask the Board of Select Persons and the school committee to reject the recommendations of the town accountant and instead lay out a policy memo similar to the annual budget memo of the critical services for our quality of life that must be preserved in this budget. I ask these boards, and in particular the appointed leaders of our town, the town manager and the school superintendent, establish a series of recommendations that must be included in the budget to meet our collective needs. These recommendations can then be reviewed by the policy-making boards and ultimately adopted into the budget approved by the legislative body of our community, town meeting. This is a progressive, thoughtful approach as compared to simply using percentages and continued use of language to reinforce the we versus them mentality of municipal versus schools that historically plagued this community. We have come so far in eliminating that barrier. Let's not use that language reinforce that mentality. We are one community, one school district, and one North Andover. We need the budget to follow policy, not policy following budget or accounting. We, as a town, appointed two great progressive leaders in our town manager and school superintendent, in part, I think, to allow us the option of breaking away from our historical ways of doing business. Let's empower them to think differently about this. Let's empower ourselves to think differently about this. We can craft a budget that reflects our statutory requirements while being more sensitive to funding critical services that our community will need in the coming months. I ask the school board and the select persons to begin a process of resetting a physically appropriate budget that is focused on services that our community will need. And then that was from Tom Dugan, Beacon Hill Boulevard, and I apologize for not refreshing my computer before we started, so apologies. That's it for the agenda. Any public comment or any comments from our members? Helen, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. Again, I just want to say, I know we've paid a lot of attention to our seniors, and I think that's really important, and I commend all who have done that. But I do want to, speak again to the importance of the junior year experience. They're missing college visits, they're missing SATs, they've been working on their GPAs to get ready for their big year. So I think in that vein, I would say, we're not all in the same boat, we're all in the same storm. And our boats are a little different one from another, but we're trying to manage this storm together. And then Marcy made reference to the SEL information that was shared at NAPAC. I would encourage anybody who's looking for ways to support their children or ways to support themselves as parents to look at the SEL information that's on the remote learning section of the website, as well as on the BRC section and the SEL section of the website. It has such things as home meditation for families, and it has a tremendous amount of information. So I would commend that to folks.
Thank you, Helen. Amy?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Andrew?
I just have two quick things. One, I really want to take a quick moment and thank Dr. Gilligan and Mr. Jackson. When we heard from the students, I think it was a week ago, on the plan for graduation, we very quickly heard from an awful lot of parents who were concerned about what that was going to look like and how we could move forward. And as much hard work and brainstorming kind of went into that, I think they, always still just wanted a little bit more in terms of the opportunity to kind of see their children walk across the stage. And so I really want to thank Dr. Gilligan and Mr. Jackson for some updates and some modifications to that. As I've said to a number of people, only Mrs. Mabley, on the committee really knows what it's like to have a current senior. But, it is something that, we all have in our minds and that experience that's out there. So thank you. But more importantly, I really want to thank the parents and the students who reached out to kind of say, give us a chance, give us hope, and, we'll try to be within guidelines from the state and the Board of Health in order to make this special and memorable for them, which I think it should be. So I think that's something we really would celebrate as well. And I think there are a lot of communities struggling with this. And I have friends from all over the country who have asked, what are we doing? And their districts are graduating in 2-3 weeks and do not have any plans public right now in terms of what that is. With graduating classes more than double our size. I think we put a good step out, and we realized that there were some changes that were needed, and we are making those changes. And then the very last thing I would just say, and this is really for perhaps Mrs. Marks, the slideshow or slide deck that you had for the remote learning. I got 2 texts in the middle of the meeting, just people wanting to make sure that they could find it. They had a little bit of difficulty finding it. So I really just want to make sure that, that is really front and center. I think parents want to know how they can support their children in the role that they have today. And there was some amazing information that was in there. And I really want to make sure that no one kind of logs onto any of those sites without the opportunity to find it. Because you guys put some amazing work in it. And thank you again.
Thank you, Andrew. Holly?
No comments tonight.
Thank you. I made my comments earlier. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 21st, 2020. That will include the public hearing on school choice. I did see the little blurb in the paper, the public notice in the paper, so thanks, Bev, for taking care of that. We are going to now move back into executive session, but to conduct strategy regarding the NADA contract negotiations. We will not come back to regular session. So could I have a motion to the sort?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Helen, seconded by Holly to go into executive session, not to return. Helen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Holly, how do you vote?
Yes.
Amy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. We are now going to executive session. Thank you.
Thank you.